Alice in Wonderland. The dark, meaning behind the madness. Imagine waking up not in a room, but in an endless fall. What you thought was a dream reveals itself to be an abyss, and every time you try to find solid ground, the world changes shape. Wonderland wasn't made for children. It was designed for restless minds, an irresistible invitation to madness and self-discovery. Do you think you know Alice? Is this story just an enchanted fantasy of rabbits, tea, and playing cards? What if this story is the key to understanding everything we try to hide beneath the surface of our own daily lives? Lewis Carroll not only created a fantastic universe, he depicted his own mind in crisis, exposing fears, addictions, obsessions, and traumas as pieces on an impossible chessboard. The moment Alice sees the white rabbit running, it's no longer just curiosity. It's a desperate desire to escape herself. The white rabbit represents anxiety. The eternal clock is time slipping away, pressing down, and never offering rest. Do you feel this too? When routine consumes you and seems to offer no respite, have you ever wished for a rabbit to appear and take you away? But think, where does this rabbit lead us? What if the burrow is deeper than logic suggests? What if each strange creature is, in fact, a part of you trying to protect yourself from unbearable truths? Alice's fall is the beginning of chaos. The rules disappear. Certainties become playful. Wonderland is the unconscious unleashed. As Jung described, everything we repress one day appears masked as adventure. The scenery shifts like dreams. The characters evaporate like fragments of memory. The Cheshire Cat appears and disappears, but its smile, the symbol of madness, remains fixed on the horizon. We're all crazy here, says the cat. But have you ever realized that you're part of that circle? Think fast. What part of yourself haunts you, makes you smile for no reason, and appears when no one is looking? The cat represents obsessive thoughts, the habit of repeating, of feeding the same fear until it becomes a companion. In the center of the kingdom, the Queen of Hearts shouts, "Off with his head!" Alice shrinks before the immense figure, not because she fears losing her body, but because she fears losing control. The Queen is trauma dressed in a crown, the authoritarian voice, the excessive demands, the fear of making mistakes. Have you ever felt this arbitrary power, whether from parents, teachers, bosses, or even yourself, when the mind oppresses and judges without mercy? Is Alice really running away from the Queen, or from her own need to please to avoid punishment? What happens when we realize that the greatest tyranny is internal? The meanings multiply. The Mad Hatter, in his Eternal Tea Party, represents mental collapse, mania, repetition, social exile. The rabbit is always late, a prisoner of anxiety, like someone who can never be present. The mushrooms transform, distort. They are the hallucinations that emerge when one tries to escape pain. The logic of Wonderland is the logic of the nightmare, says Jung. There is no fixed meaning. Each character, each setting, is a facet of the self in crisis, seeking adaptation. On the plate at Chamaluco, you'll find what's left of their own fears, served as an exotic recipe for survival. Now stop for a moment. When everything around you seems absurd, how do you protect yourself? Do you pretend everything is normal? Do you create rituals to make sense of the unbearable? This is where Alice runs in a loop, never finding a way out. It's the perfect reflection of our daily struggle against lack of control. Perhaps then Wonderland isn't just a place. It's a state of mind. It's your world when it's out of control. In the mirror, Alice searches for answers. She asks. Someone answers in riddles. Time melts, the image cracks. Perhaps Alice's greatest folly is imagining that she will wake up without realizing that normality never existed, that everything is transformation, and there is never a return to the starting point. What if Alice's true cycle is realizing that growing up means descending deeper into one's own unconscious? That facing Wonderland is facing oneself? In the end, it's impossible to know if Alice returns or if she's trapped forever. The clock breaks. Sanity, too. And the beauty of this narrative lies not in the escape, but in the work of integrating one's own shadow. of naming one's fears, of allowing madness to be just another language for the mystery of life. The fall, between the ground and the abyss. When Alice starts to fall, the reader hardly realizes that they are already falling along with her. It's not a physical fall, but a plunge, and not just down the rabbit hole, but into the depths of one's own unconscious. The abyss of Wonderland has no end, because it's made of the same substance as dreams, obsessions, and traumas that never end. Alice asks, repeats, invents logic where there is none, but nothing holds her light body. The slower the ground, the heavier the inner space. The narrative intentionally confuses time, space, and reason. The clock no longer marks earthly hours. It marks leaps in perception, mood swings, ruptures between desire and reality. And you? Have you ever felt the vertigo of your own mind? What happens when all certainties vanish and the only company available is unanswered questions? Alice is curious, but restless. The white rabbit represents much more than just haste. It's the embodiment of anxiety. There's never enough time, never enough order. From the very beginning, Wonderland reveals itself as a place where time is the enemy. Every second of delay, every nervous cry from the rabbit, is a needle stuck into humanity's inability to control the future. But as she falls, Alice experiences her first transformation. She realizes she no longer has control, neither over her path nor over whom she encounters. And this loss is frightening but also promising. Does any of us truly have control before we fall? Or does every adventure, every growth begin when we accept the fall? During her fall, Alice finds objects, bottles, books, maps, cakes. These objects are fragments of experience that blend memories, dreams, and fears. Each element of this value is not an item, but a symbol. For Jung, the object in the dream is always a bridge to the universal symbol. Alice's curiosity, however, is not enough to prevent discomfort. What was once fun quickly becomes strange. The ground never seems to reach. Perhaps the mind projects distractions to avoid thinking about the true depth of the fall. If you could choose one object to hold on to while falling, what would it be? What symbol would give you strength in the midst of the unknown? Reaching the bottom, or what appears to be the bottom, is only the beginning. Alice, now trapped in a strange environment, needs to understand where she is. But the more she tries to adapt, the more the rules change. Wonderland adapts to the mind, to fantasy, to trauma, never to the desire for order. This initial crisis is essential. The fall, symbolized by the loss of gravity, represents the beginning of the transcendent function, what Jung called the work between opposites, between ego and shadow, between what is known and what is feared. Have you ever noticed that the most transformative moments aren't when everything makes sense, but when we face the abyss of the unknown? First encounters, from the rabbit to the impossible door. As soon as she lands, Alice tries to follow the white rabbit, but the chase is unsuccessful. Everyone at some point tries to chase after what they cannot reach. The rabbit represents the promise of meaning, of answers, but the door through which he enters is too small, and here arises the first major identity crisis. Alice is forced to ask herself, who is she? Too small to fit in? Too big to be seen? In the process of trying to adapt, she consumes bottles, cakes, fans, forgets her height, forgets her name, and realizes frighteningly that every transformation is a loss. The door crisis is brilliant. It's a metaphor for the threshold. For Jung, the threshold is the place where we change state, social role, and consciousness. Alice needs to shrink, grow, lose her shape in order to try to fit in. And the more you try, the less you remember who you were. Because the more we change to please or fit in, the less we know who we are. How many times have you had to change to fit through a door that was never meant for you? What part of yourself was left outside? The search for meaning in Wonderland is, from the outset, impossible. Objects never function the same way, and like dreams, only serve to confuse things further. Alice cries, a sea of tears that almost drowns her. It's the emotional excess, the catharsis. The moment when the inner world overflows and can become a threat. The transformation of sadness into an ocean is a warning. Repressed, neglected, or excessively triggered feelings can engulf the individual. When Alice finally crosses over to the other side, she no longer knows if she is who she thought she was. The landscape has changed, and so have the rules. The white rabbit escapes and she follows, because there is no alternative. Wonderland demands constant movement, frequent adaptations, and harsh self-knowledge. Our next encounter will be with characters who, each one, will force you to choose between being, seeming, or disappearing. Are you ready to face the Cheshire Cat? The Cheshire Cat, smile, disappearance, and the enigma of madness. Imagine the fog thickening as you try to find your way in a place without a compass. Suddenly, from the crooked branches, or even from the spaces between your own thoughts, a smile emerges. Before the gaze, before the voice, a smile hovering, detached, impossible. That's the Cheshire Cat. Are you afraid of everything that disappears without a trace? Except for a smile that never goes away? If madness had a form, perhaps it would be that floating laugh that insists on saying that everything is insane, and that's normal. The Cheshire Cat is not just an eccentric character. He is the guide to the border regions of the unconscious. He is Jung's trickster function, the personification of paradox, of absurdity, of that which dismantles certainties only to show that no concept is secure. The Cheshire Cat appears when Alice is confused, lost. But note, he never solves anything. He only complicates things with questions that seem like answers, answers that seem like riddles. So, which way should I go? Alice asks. That depends a lot on where you want to go, the cat replies. But he doesn't give her what she's hoping for. How many times have you also found yourself stuck at a crossroads, needing clear direction, but only finding new questions, or worse, that old habit of rationalizing everything when the feeling was purely chaotic? For Jung, the trickster appears when the ego refuses to integrate the shadow. The cat seems to provoke, but in reality it's asking, accept the lack of control. Be comfortable with the unusual. The laughter, the disappearance, the I've seen it all look. Everything is an invitation to step out of your comfort zone. Finally, we're all mad here, the cat blurts out, and Alice trembles. Yes, everyone, including you, even if you insist on normalcy just to protect yourself from the abyss. But if logic has given way to madness, the question remains, does Alice resist, or does she succumb? At what point does the viewer realize, agree, surrender, that the inner world is a territory of paradoxes, noises, and laughter impossible to banish? Alice, like you now, seeks stability, but Wonderland punishes those who crave certainty. The cat disappears and reappears. It becomes a body, turns into a smile, vanishes without ever being there, without ever explaining. This is the lesson of dreams and the unconscious. Not everything can, nor should, be fixed in words, much less in self-diagnoses. The mind needs enigma. It needs to oscillate. Have you ever noticed how taciturn that recurring thought is? That involuntary laughter in the face of absurdity? What if it's your own shadow playing tricks on you, suggesting that the only way out is to learn to laugh at what will never have an answer? Jung would say, only those who recognize the trickster within themselves walk wholeheartedly through the labyrinth of individuation. In her encounter with the Cheshire Cat, Alice realizes that the opposite of despair is not control, but courageous curiosity. When everything is uncertain, learning to ask questions is worth more than waiting for answers. The laughter that remains is a reminder that the unusual is more real than any rigid norm. The cat disappears, but the doubt remains. And now, how to survive in a country where the forces shift at every turn, where all certainty crumbles to dust. The Queen of Cups, authority, fear, and the scream of trauma. As Alice gets closer to the heart of Wonderland, everything becomes more intense and dangerous. This is where the Queen of Hearts emerges. There is no more room for ambiguity. She embodies authoritarianism, sudden cruelty, unexplained commands, orders shouted like whips. Off with his head. Stop and think. Has there ever been someone in your life whose rules changed without warning? Someone who frightened you not by physical strength, but by the unpredictability of their mood, by the feeling that punishment could come at any moment, especially when you least expected it? Alice's fear is not just of physical pain, but of the sudden and arbitrary appearance of punishment. The Queen represents the internalized trauma of excessive authority, the aspect of every system, familial or social, that links power to fear, education to humiliation, and error to punishment. The Queen's palace is not a place of protection, it's a battlefield. The subjects cower, everyone walks on eggshells, each shuffled card fears the next fit of rage. When the Queen screams, nothing else matters. Fear is absolute, logic vanishes, and each character reveals their own weakness before the roar of power. Have you ever felt this oppression, even in silence? What did it make you repress? An idea, a feeling, or the very right to be spontaneous? In The Imbalance of Wonderland, Jung would tell us that the Queen is the personification of the dark archetype of negative matriarchal power, that which suffocates, represses, and demands submission without compassion. Every time we seek to please the Queen, we deny our own limits, our individuality. Alice, small before the Queen, is like you facing the impossible. You try to argue but realize that words are useless against senseless fury. Many have experienced, perhaps you too, the lump in your throat, that feeling of powerlessness in the face of unquestionable authority. The Queen is more than a villain. She is an expression of the distorted superego, the internalized law that tolerates neither failure nor vulnerability. If you've ever felt judged, unable to be authentic for fear of ridicule or the anger of others, you've already met the Queen of Hearts in your own inner world, it seems. Think, comment here, even without names. What moment in your childhood or adult life made you feel diminished because of an authoritarian figure? What would you do differently today if you could shout back? By challenging the Queen, Alice experiences terror, but also plants a seed of rebellion, the seed of self-knowledge. Psychological maturation, for Jung, requires confronting not only external parents, but also the authoritarian voices we carry with us wherever we go. True courage is facing this terror head-on and surviving it without losing oneself. But how can one resist tyranny without turning to stone, without losing the heart of one's own dream? In the next scene, Alice ventures into the delirium and encounters the Mad Hatter. Will laughter and deconstruction, and not fear, be the key to moving forward? Or is it precisely in the chaos of tea that the next danger lies? The Mad Hatter, laughter, time, and the art of surviving the surreal. If you think you've seen every kind of absurdity, wait until you meet the Mad Hatter's tea party. Alice is drawn to the table but not to eat. What is served there are riddles, repetitions, nervous laughter, endless discussions, all mixed with sips of cold tea. Have you ever been in a situation where the more you tried to make sense of it, the more it all turned into a joke or noise? Have you ever found yourself remembering seemingly illogical conversations, but which deep down hid the greatest existential tensions? The Mad Hatter is not just mad, he is the guardian of impossible time. Trapped by a broken clock, always 6 o'clock, always tea time, he forces us to confront the feeling of being imprisoned in a day that never ends, in a routine that repeats itself like a punishment. Time now is either the enemy or the accomplice of madness. For many, the eternal tea is familiar, living trapped in repetitions, obsessions, routines that both numb and drive you crazy. The questions are not intended to provide answers, they are meant to provoke thought. Why does a crow look like a writing desk? Nonsense is the only rule. When was the last time you realized you were trapped in an absurd cycle, in a job, a relationship, a memory that kept returning the same way, with no hope of clear meaning? The Mad Hatter may seem funny, but he hides a tragic undertone. He is a symbol of mental collapse, of someone who tried to keep up with the most insane demands until all that was left for him was to lose himself in improvisation. Alice, Diante Dale. Now she laughs, now she gets irritated, now she gets grieved. Their discomfort is universal. To grow, the psyche needs to confront nonsense when se noto the eternal, more of the same. Here, philosophy meets Jung. The cyclical nature of tea is the time of trauma, where the unprocessed wound keeps returning, and only those who dare to interrupt the party, or refuse the invitation to forever toast to the past, can escape. What are the eternal tea parties you frequent? What do you do to break the logic of the loop, even if everyone says that's just how it is? Alice realizes that if she stays, she'll never get out of there. She needs to get up, even without understanding why, and move on because the surreal threatens to become a prison. But each time we say goodbye to the absurd, a strange feeling remains. Is it possible to find real order out there? Or are we just exchanging nonsense, layers, and characters? The caterpillar, the mushrooms, and the big question, who are you? Alice, fresh from her eternal tea party, stumbles upon a new enigmatic figure, the blue caterpillar. At the top of the mushroom, surrounded by smoke and short phrases, the caterpillar stares at Alice and blurts out without warning, "Who are you?" No one had demanded that answer from her until then. Not her parents, not the rabbit, not the hatter. There, facing the strangest creature, Alice realizes she doesn't know. If you were asked right now to say, in no uncertain terms, "Who are you?" what would you answer? Name, profession, desire, fear, or just silence? The caterpillar doesn't make things easy. It scans the air with sharp phrases, continues smoking, and observes Alice as a challenge. Jung, in his analysis of dreams and archetypes, shows us that moments of metamorphosis always require the loss of name, form, and, often, memory. In Wonderland, mushrooms are more than just food. They are chemical portals for transformation, expansion, shrinkage, and dissolution. Alice bites off a piece, grows and shrinks, alternating in size until she doubts her own body. The symbolism is clear. Every change requires some degree of physical and mental estrangement. The caterpillar, with its drunken voice, speaks of metamorphosis, of waiting for the moment to become someone else, of accepting instability. This is the classic journey of the self. There is no evolution without chaos, without crisis, without abandoning old definitions. Alice resists, tries to explain, "I've been so many things that I don't even know anymore." And the caterpillar insists, "Really? Then prove it." What metamorphosis do you reject? Which challenges you? What experiences, relationships, or memories have you been forced to emerge from smaller, bigger, different, only to discover that no one provides a manual for the new you? In the mushroom vapor, Alice feels her mind expand and get lost. What was simple before is now a puzzle. The body itself becomes a foreign object. Identity dissolves like the bluish smoke of the caterpillar. Doubt is terrifying, but also vital. Those who have never been lost can never reinvent themselves. Next, Alice is given the right to choose her path. Finally, she receives some impractical but essential advice. Parts of the mushroom will make it grow, others will make it shrink. In life, it's the same. Every experience, every trauma or joy, every revelation or shock works on our psychic stature, sometimes making us smaller, sometimes making us giants in the face of our own history. What was the strangest mushroom you've ever tasted? What event, person, or crisis made you realize that the self is a work in transformation? For many, the encounter with the caterpillar is the turning point. With the question, "Who are you?" Carol portrays the crisis of individuation, the moment when the psychedelic trip becomes a creative process of self-discovery, a refusal of passivity, a challenge to pre-established answers. But if every answer is always temporary, what danger lies in the next steps of Wonderland? Alice, now able to grow or shrink at will, realizes that power without direction can be just another trap. And around the next corner, Tweedledee and Tweedledum appear to further blur the lines between truth and falsehood. Tweedledee and Tweedledum, the game of opposites and the ultimate confusion. From the mushroom vapors and the caterpillar's questions, Alice will stumble upon one of the most enigmatic paradoxes in literature. Tweedledee and Tweedledum, two brothers, perfect copies, contradictory and complementary, who talk, interrupt each other, fight over nothing, and share the same face. The encounter is disconcerting. Alice tries to tell them apart but gets lost. Each one looks the same as the other, but she swears there's a difference. Questions multiply. Who is right? Which is the truth? And what if there is, after all, no single definitive definition? How many times have you encountered choices, ideas, or feelings that are completely contradictory, and realized that paradoxically, they are all part of you? For Jung, Tweedledee and Tweedledum represent the archetype of the pair, the double, the shadow, and the ego, always in conflict, always revolving around the mystery of plural identity. The duality exists to remind us that within each of us dwells a force that struggles, that questions, that destabilizes the obsession with certainty, and that, in order to grow, we need to accept that there is no permanent peace between opposites. In Wonderland, the law is confusion. Tweedledee and Tweedledum never resolve anything. They argue over false memories. They invent battles that never happened. Alice realizes the human mind is her. Tweedledee and Tweedledum battling every day within her. Who are your inner Tweedledees and Tweedledums? Have you ever felt two opposing wills constantly battling each other? What was the biggest indecision of your life? And which side did your heart lean towards? The double is also a warning. When we refuse to accept multiplicity, we create eternal conflicts, which can turn into external wars, emotional ruptures, and peaks of anxiety. The logic of opposites serves to show that every absolute answer is a simplification, and that the secret to maturity lies in making peace with confusion. Alice tries to argue with her brothers, but quickly gives up. They laugh, mock, exchange nonsensical phrases, and confuse their concepts. That is the philosophical function of Wonderland: to break the habit of giving quick answers, to learn to ask questions, to learn to tolerate "I don't know." What happens when confusion no longer frightens but liberates? Is it possible to move forward without having to decide everything? Alice's next journey will be even more challenging. After the duel with the doubles, she will open herself up to the most absurd characters of all, where lies and truth are two sides of the same coin. Humpty Dumpty, the word puzzle and the search for meaning. Alice, tired of doubles and paradoxes, encounters Humpty Dumpty, the enormous, perched, proud egg. The character makes his own existence a monument to instability. Any imbalance can cause him to collapse, break, and never be put back together. Humpty Dumpty doesn't debate ideas, he debates words. For him, meaning is not defined by agreement, but by the desire of the speaker. When I use a word, it means exactly what I want it to. Nothing more, nothing less. Have you ever experienced a moment when it seemed like everyone was speaking the same language, but no one truly understood each other? What if every word, every symbol, changed meaning according to the emotion, pain, or dream of the person speaking? Here, Carroll turns metaphysical. He exposes the human power not only to invent, but to reinvent realities through language. Humpty Dumpty decrees meaning is power, and as a bonus he adds ironically, not everything that breaks can be fixed. Jung teaches that the work of individuation necessarily involves revolutions in meaning. Only those who remake their internal pacts with words can grow. Love, pain, fear, hope, all renamed according to new experiences and old traumas. What word has changed meaning the most for you throughout your life? What was love in childhood and what has it become now? Which term haunts you? Which one saves you? In the conversation, Alice tries to find logic, but Humpty Dumpty imposes his private dictionary. She listens, she asks questions, but she soon realizes that just as in the psychic world, No one is guaranteed to be truly understood. The egg crisis can only be overcome by accepting a hard truth. Not everything fits together. Not every meaning is certain, and communication is, inevitably, a puzzle without a manual. But if language can be broken at any moment, how can one remain whole when everything is fragmented? In the next segment, Alice's journey leads to the Queen's court, where lies, truth, memory, and justice become intertwined, and the ultimate sentence is surviving the confusion itself. The Queen's court, the trial and the end of innocence. Alice, tired of riddles, doubles, broken eggs, and ever-changing rules, is finally summoned to the court of the Queen of Hearts. Here, the scene unfolds like the grand theater of delirious justice. Letters march, subjects whisper. The Queen commands with a thunderous voice, while the King feigns composure. What's at stake? An alleged transgression by the Jack of Hearts. But as with many real traumas and trials, nobody actually remembers the crime. Witnesses contradict each other. Memories become jokes. Evidence is reduced to scribbles, and reason unravels like a deck of cards in the wind. Have you ever stood before a courtroom where everything seemed decided before it even began? How many times has justice, whether domestic or public, been nothing but theater, and the truth merely an inconvenient detail? The Queen demands, sentence first, verdict later. And Alice, both witness and defendant, realizes the absurdity. In Wonderland, as in the fragmented mind, punishment comes before understanding. Guilt is fabricated based on fear and confusion. The trial is the climax of the loss of innocence. Alice sees everyone bowing down, not to the law, but to force. Justice is distorted, childhood is tested, and trauma is reinforced. What was left unsaid, what is only hinted at, becomes grounds for eternal condemnation. The viewer notices, how many times have you witnessed your own memory being judged? And how many feelings, doubts, and gestures have been judged before even receiving an explanation? Jung says that individuation requires surviving the inner tribunal. The Queen's voice, be it memory, authoritarianism, perfectionism, or trauma, will always try to silence the self, demanding that it either conform or disappear. When pressured, Alice discovers something unprecedented: courage to speak up, to question, to challenge the system. It is at this moment that growth begins. The rebellion against the absurd, the refusal of the logic of fear, the birth of the active and autonomous subject within history itself. What if, in the most important judgment, you finally said no to the power of the Queen, both within and without? Alice, witnessing the downfall, realizes that everything is beginning to crumble. The court descends into chaos. Letters fly, voices mingle. But is waking up the end of Wonderland, or simply the beginning of adult life, responsibilities, and a new way of looking at the impossible? The return, the awakening, the integration of madness, and the invitation to transformation. The courtroom dissolves into voices, papers, fluttering letters, levels of absurdity. Alice loses her footing, loses her bearings, feels the world crumbling. But it is then, in the very act of collapse, that she realizes the greatest power is not obeying the Queen, but choosing for the first time who she wants to be. She screams. She says no. She regresses to her real body, wakes up sweating, frightened, eyes wide. The adult world, or the world of the sane, awaits her, but nothing will be the same as before. Wonderland is not a nightmare, and it's a rite of passage. Alice returns changed because she brought back not only doubts and traumas, but also courage, compassion, and the beauty of knowing that not every answer is definitive. And you? After navigating your own labyrinths, crises, and nonsense, can you recognize who you've become? If you could sleep and wake up again, what part of the dream would you keep with you? Jung speaks of the individuation process as that which allows us to integrate shadow and light. Alice doesn't erase Wonderland. It carries the enigma, the Cheshire Cat's grin, the echo of the Queen's scream, the smell of mushrooms, the laughter, and the fear. These fragments are their raw material for building meaning, maturity, and above all, empathy for the confusion of others. The biggest secret of Wonderland: there is no going back to the starting point. Each dive transforms not only the heart, but also the way one sees the world. Trauma and madness leave scars, but also portals to create, love, question, and laugh. Alice now knows. Sanity is not absolute peace, but the dynamic balance between losing oneself and reinventing oneself. True awakening is being able to look at nonsense, inside and out, and not run away, but learning to dance in the midst of it. Reflect. Of everything that seemed impossible, absurd, or painful, what has now become a source of strength, art, or compassion? Write it down. Share it. Ask someone, what Wonderland exists within you? Comment. Which character haunts you the most? Which scene heals you? The greatest miracle is discovering, every time the clock breaks, that a new dream can begin, sometimes requiring only a misstep, a slip, a hurried rabbit. Wonderland is not just escapism, it's a rehearsal for real life. And like Alice, what saves us is not waking up, but knowing that the next dive will be more lucid, more conscious, more intense. The cycle doesn't end here. Beyond the rabbit hole, the meaning of all madness, Alice returns to the surface of herself, but she will never be just the girl who entered dreaming. Everything that happened down there, the hurried rabbit, the cat's grin, the queen's tyranny, the hatter's tea party, the caterpillar's steam, the fight between the doubles, the broken egg, the chaotic court, is condensed into something much bigger than a plot. Wonderland now resides within her as memory, fantasy, trauma, and power. She gradually understands that chaos, nonsense, and pain are not aberrations. They are legitimate parts of the process of growing, creating, and building meaning. The final lesson is Jungian. Integrate the shadow. Resist inner tyranny. Respect madness without giving up the search for meaning. Have you also fallen, slipped, lost track of time, fought with inner doubles, reinvented the meaning of words, sat in anxious tribunals of your own ego? So know this: in this journey, in your life, in every dream, transformation is the true Wonderland. Alice discovers that waking up is not the end. It's the decision not to run away from her own mind, to dance with the enigma, to laugh at the absurdity, and to build courage every time fear wants to give up. You, the viewer, are invited to remain restless, curious, and open. Behind every seemingly innocent story lies a labyrinth waiting, and ultimately the chance to make peace with one's own nonsense. Comment below. Which block made you think differently about Alice, or about yourself? What aspects of your own madness became a source of creativity or courage? Who is the character from your inner Wonderland? Share this video with anyone who needs to navigate their own dreams and setbacks. Sign up for more philosophical and psychoanalytic dives into the classics, because each new analysis is a new rabbit hole, ready to be explored. In the end, we all became a little more like Alice. With each story deciphered, the reader reinvents themselves. There is no turning back for those who cross Wonderland. Only new beginnings, new questions, and the courage to continue. Thank you so much for diving into this universe. If you wish to expand further, create variations, address specific traumas, or transform this material into a video script, podcast, or book, simply ask. Wonderland never ends. It only transforms when it is shared.